Hello, Red here from microgrinder.com, bringing you the first in my 30NL series. I plan on making maybe 6 videos of around half an hour to 45 minutes each time, just of me playing 30NL Snap, which is a level beneath where I usually play. Well, having said that, it's the first video series I've made. I'm not sure how well I'm going to adjust to commenting on the hands whilst playing. If it goes well, I may move up to 50NL and play some games there. But for now, I'm just going to make this and hopefully you enjoy it. Straight into the action. These games, in my opinion, play reasonably weak tight. The 50NL games, there seem to be more bad aggressive players in them. 30NL, there seem to be definitely more weak type people who do out very good at value betting, people who tend to check and call lines with hands that better players would absolutely value bet. So I do find myself sometimes value owning myself in these games. But having said that, there's also lots of value to be had because people let you have so many free cards that you can just choose to take, and then they still have a problem folding their hands at the end because they'll probably level themselves into thinking that because they've taken such a weak line that they've induced some kind of bluff that they usually haven't induced. This is my first contentious thing. I don't play small pairs in other position. By small pairs, I mean 2s through 6s. It's just not something I do. I don't believe it's particularly profitable, if at all profitable. Playing that position just isn't fun, especially with a hand that isn't going to improve very often and isn't going to give us very many good high equity semi-bluffing opportunities. I'm sure a ton of people will see me folding that hand and just think, what a nit. It's true, I am quite a nit. But having said that, again, I'm folding the 60s here. Having said that, I have a large sample size where I've demonstrated to myself that I am not profitable playing them hands from them positions, so therefore I just choose not to do it. Poker for me is about making money. It's not about playing the flashy hands, having the look at me, I played 25-22 with a 12% 3-bet. It's not about that. It's about making decisions that are going to make me as much money as I can relatively easily. For me, poker's about making a nice side income on top of my day job and doing it in a stress-free way as possible. And if that means I fold small pairs in another position, I'm more than happy to do so. Although I'm sure there are lots of players who can make strong cases for it being profitable. I will apologise in advance if there are some quiet moments in the video. We're just two tabling. We're not always going to get very many exciting situations to discuss. So if there is any quietness, any sort of quiet spells, I do apologise in advance. But I'm conscious that I don't really want to ramble on too much. When this guy donks here, especially when he donks for pot, I think we can take a raise or a call line, purely because I think there's definitely value to be had from his draws. But having said that, if he takes a 3-bet line with his draws, I'm going to have to fold a lot of the time, or just decide to gamble with him with a hand that's really, I'm not that happy to get a lot of money with, but I am happy to certainly call 1-bet and see what happens. Unless he's got an ace-high flush draw, I think the ace doesn't really change very much. I could value bet now, for sure. He could definitely have 7, he could have 6-5, he could have 9-10. There's lots of worse hands I can call. So I think I will do that. It's definitely thin. It's definitely with an intention of folding should he raise, but I do think there's definitely some small value to be had that I won't be able to get on the river unless I want to start calling down him if he bets the river. So I think I can get value now. I'd rather just try and take it, although it is thin. Here we have a really easy isolation against somebody. I'm going to have to call it off if he shoves because his stack size is so small. And here now, I think we absolutely have the best hand, and I think there's a good chance we can get called by a worse hand. A reasonable size bet. I think I'm going to go just under 2/3 pot and expect to get called by worse. And again, I will be, if he was to jam on me there, I would have reluctantly folded. Here the pot's so small, sorry, the pot's so large compared to his stack size, I'm just going to jam it in and expect to get called by worse a significant amount of the time. Going back to this time, the result of that was, I didn't notice, he had 2 9s. So I got kind of lucky. But I don't think there's really much more to say about that. I think I'm happy with the way I played the hand. I will play it that way again. I'm really happy with my value bet on the river. I could squeeze here with my ace-5, but this guy's stack, I think we're going to get it in bad order, not great often enough, so I think we have a nice call on this board with the low end of the opening straight draw. I'm just planning on checking and folding. I'm not going to get too creative with like the worst possible draw I can have on a board where I can not really get too many folds. I can't really represent anything other than draws, and I don't think I have any fold equity. Now it's gone bet raise. It's just a super easy fold. An important point if you are playing on 888 specifically in snap games, as you'll see, there is no HUD. What you will need to do, and if we were playing 15, then you would see it a lot more, is you will need to start tagging players who you do some work away from the table when you're reviewing hands, keep the tables open or keep the hand replayer open. Like so, and then go back through the hands at the end, tagging players, tagging the tags, tagging the nits, tagging the fish. And also taking notes on hands. If I wasn't in a video, the 9-9 hand, I would absolutely have taken the notes on the he donked almost full pot with an overpair to the board, and then started bluff catching after the overcard came on the turn. Them notes, they're going to be invaluable to you as you go on. And even if you are playing on a site where you can use your HUD, notes, in my opinion, good notes are more valuable than stats. And then when they're used in conjunction with stats, they can be invaluable. If you're not doing that kind of work, you are definitely leaving money on the table, and it's just lazy not to do it. It's just part of what being a profitable poker player is. Part of that. It's a dirty side of the game. It's dirty work. It's not a lot of fun doing it. Sometimes it can be time consuming and possibly distract you when you're playing. But it's just something we need to do. We need to know what people are up to. We need to know how they construct their ranges for their actions, so we can then use that against them in future hands. Be that by making some tight folds against them if we believe they're never bluffing, or to the other side of that, make some really quite light calls if we think they are too bluff heavy. We can't really know that by stats alone. We can if it's a really large number, but we can't really know it otherwise. Here I am just going to 3-bet because this guy's a regular. I don't particularly want to get squeezed. So I'm just going to put a 3-bet for value in because I believe we can get caught by a lot worse. Even though he's raising from middle position, his range is going to be tighter. I still believe we can get caught by worse hands. This is not a good flop for us. His calling range is absolutely smashing this board. If we believe his calling range is going to be middle connected cards, which I believe is in most people's calling range in these spots, his range is much stronger than mine on this particular board. When he checks back, I believe he's going to have a hand like ace, king, and pocket pairs a lot. So I'm definitely going to bet the turn as a bluff, and then consider betting the river if he just calls to get folds from hands like pocket nines, pocket tens, ace, king. If he raises, it's just a really easy fold. And if it comes an ace or a queen on the river, I think I will have a value bet situation then. The king's a really interesting card because I can absolutely have ace king here. I still think his range is draw. I think he's going to have jack queen, jack 10 quite a lot, some clubs, some 10x. I think we have to bet this again here. It's just a matter of sizing now. And because I'm not really trying to make him fold jack x that much, I'm more interested in making him fold pocket nines, pocket tens. I don't think I have to bet super big to do that. I think I can get away with betting around $8. And again, this is just attacking like the weaker parts of his range that called in the first place. I'm not really trying to get him to fold Jack. If I think he's got like Jack Queen here, I'm clearly not going to try and get him to fold that. When he raises, well, he's repping a full house, basically. And obviously I can't do anything about that, so I just have to fold. Again, for the same reasons I don't play pocket twos under the gun, I don't really want to set mine with them against a regular. I think when we flop a set, we don't get paid as often as we think we do. In a heads-up pot, if he'd been called by somebody, I probably would have called then, but in a heads-up pot, I'm not that inclined to set mine. They used to be profitable maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. I don't think it's too profitable now to set mine and just in heads-up pots. Here we have somebody, I believe this gentleman is a regular. I don't have him tagged as one, but I do believe that he is. Because we are deep, I am going to 3-bet. Sometimes I could just call here and then 3-bet over a squeeze, but because we are deep, I want to start getting more money in the pot now, so I'm going to 3-bet and expect him to call with worse hands because of our stack depth. If he 4-bets us, it puts us in a slightly difficult spot, but I'm not going to be folding pocket kings to a 4-bet just because I'm 150 blinds deep. I expect him to fold a lot here. On this body, when he calls, I'm just going to triple barrel off just because I've got the equity too. I'm definitely not going to bet the turn and then not bet the river, because there's loads of hands that are going to call 2 streets and then fold the 3rd barrel. Now I've rivered the straight, it's a matter of, do I have to, well, I clearly don't have to bluff anymore, but is there any value in betting? What worse hands are going to call me in this spot? On this particular board, I don't think there's very many worse hands can call. If he's been slow playing a set, he may call. I don't think any 1-pair hand's going to call, so I'm just going to check back. And that's exactly the sort of hand that would have folded to my 3rd barrel on the river, or I would expect to fold to my 3rd barrel. So I think my plan would have worked there, which is just, it's good that it's worked out that way. I've had a hand 2 overcards and a flush draw, and I've been able to stay aggressive because of my equity. And I think my plan to triple barrel would have worked too. We didn't get a chance to find that out for sure, but I think it would have. On this board, I think we have a really easy c-bet. If he calls, we're almost always behind, or going to be in really bad equity shape. But having said that, I don't really particularly want to give any free cards, and if he's got a hand he's giving up on, say like ace-10 for example, I'd rather just make him fold that. If he's never going to bluff with it, I'd rather just make him fold his equity share now. And again, if he calls or raises, we're just done with it. There's nothing much more to be said about that if that happens. Here we have a really standard isolation situation. As you probably already noticed, I am a particularly tight player pre-flop. Post-flop, I don't do anything really out of line very often. But because of that, I can get away with perhaps a little bit more than some regulars can, against regulars that are paying attention. Against this guy here, I have no reason to bet small. There's tons of value I can get from Jack X, Ace X, and I want to start building a pot. Here we would have some stack size considerations if he was slightly short of stacks. As it is, we're never going to be able to get all the money in here, I wouldn't imagine. But I am going to still make a large turn bet, because again, I don't think we're ever going to make him fold an ace here. And there's just tons of value to be had. Unfortunately, he found a fold. I'm guessing he must have had Jack X or some kind of pair that he was not prepared to fold for 1 bet. I could have bet smaller there, but I don't think he's going to call a $5 bet. He's probably going to call a 6 or $6.50 bet. So I'm not too concerned. It's very exploitable, but against players who I think are weak and not likely to exploit me, I'm not going to worry about being exploited. Against regulars, I might make a more balanced type bet sizing, but I'm not going to bother with that against players who I feel are weak and who definitely have lots of weaker aces in their range. I'm not prepared to compromise missing value to kind of be able to bet more hands and have a more balanced range against somebody who probably isn't even thinking about that sort of thing. Here we have a bet, probable fold situation. Because they're both two regulars in the hand. I don't think they're going to be getting too out of line on this type of board against my under the gun range. If they know anything about me and they know how tight I am. And I'm not a big one for c-betting out of position. If they know them things about me, they're very unlikely to get out of line against me. And on top of that, I think these games just play, as I said at the start of the video, I think they just play really quite weak tight. I don't see people making any large bluffs. So anything they do raise me with there is likely to have a ton of equity. It's going to be like a big combo draw. At the worst, that's going to be like the bottom of the range. And I don't think I have any air balls. There wasn't many two pairs out there, so I'm kind of thinking mostly sets. But although we shouldn't just be scared of such a narrow range, they just have it so often in these games that I'm just not going to go from putting one bet and a C bet out to putting my whole stack in with just one pair, albeit being aces. I think that would be horrendous spew against all but the spewiest or leggiest type of players. I have no reason to believe those two fall into that category. As you've seen so far in these games, no one's put any pressure on me yet. Well, I think there was one hand when I was bluffing and I got raised on the river, but no one's really putting an awful lot of pressure on, which again sort of like re-emphasises my read that these games really are quite weak tight. So when people are applying pressure, we can just, I think, safely fold most of the time. I think we have a really quite a good squeeze spot here. My hand, if it was ace 2 to ace 5 suited, I think it would be a call. It's almost strong enough to call, but I think at this point I would rather just make a squeeze and turn my hand kind of into a bluff against a regular, but as a thin value against this guy who I believe is going to be a fish. When the regular calls me, I think his range is going to be really quite strong. We've now got a flop where I'm not going to be able to do anything but bet and call it off. Because, I mean, if we're not going to flop a pair, this is probably the next best thing. So my plan is here to just bet and then probably just jam any turn because it's going to be a smart slight over bet. But having said that, it's the way I would, if I had aces or kings or something here, I would play it exactly the same way for these sizings. So I'm happy to do that when I am semi-bluffing. I expect to get quite a lot of folds here. You could conceivably fold a hand as strong as pocket jacks. I'm not saying he will all the time, but he could conceivably do that, which is obviously a fantastic result with our hand. If this player had more chips, but still less than 100 blinds, I would think about calling here. But because he's got less than 50 blinds, the may implied odds aren't anywhere near as good as they need to be. If he had, say, a $22 to $25 stack, I would definitely call. Just because I think I'm such a big edge against him post-flop, I can afford to give up some, well, a significant amount of card advantage pre-flop because I'm just going to be a better player than he is. And I'm going to have position. And those two things are going to outweigh the undoubted card advantage that guy has there. Here I'm just going to fold. I was considering 3-betting, but we've 3-bet this guy once or twice already. I don't particularly want to get into too many wars with regulars. It's not what I'm about. It's not really my style. Here, I think we have a really easy fold. I would have 3-bet myself, but I'm not really going to start doing anything silly here. We're just going to fold our hand and move on to only 2-8s. I'm not going to get too attached to it. This wouldn't normally be my raising range, but because this guy here in the small blind is looking like he's going to be a fish, I am going to widen my range. Then this is what I will do. I generally play tight really tight in the first two seats unless I have a damn good reason not to. A damn good reason would be fishing the blind. Again, we have two players, Mark Green here. Ace two suited, normally it's an instant fold for me under the gun. We have two fishing the blinds. I'm prepared to open a much wider range just to get the chance to play pots with them. This flop is not good for me. I'm just happy to check and give up. And just continue with my checking and giving up. I tend not to get too out of line. I play a very exploitable style, but it just works. So I'm not saying it will work in your games if you're playing on PokerStars. Even at 10NL or 25NL, those games will be significantly tougher than 30NL and 50NL on 888. The things I'm doing here would work way less effectively, if they may not even work at all in end games. But I'm doing a video on this site in these games, so I'm going to play accordingly. I have a very strong belief that 10NL on PokerStars is close to being as tough as 50NL on 888. I think the games are just absolutely saturated with not even good players, just players that aren't losing very much. And if people aren't losing very much, they're not putting much dead money into pots, then the rake's going to eat us all. I think it's a very important consideration. People who do come and work with me, people who I start working with, if they're on PokerStars, the first thing I do is to urge them to play on this site or on Party Poker, because I think the game quality is so much better. I'll shut up for a minute while I have these two spots here. I am just going to call because I have a lot of equity. Well, not a lot of equity, but I have some backdoor equity too. Here I am going to see bet my two overs and my backdoor straight draw. Now we've hit this turn. It's not ideal because we have the worst end of the straight, and he can absolutely have hands that may be. He can have king queen, for example. I think it's not very likely. I think he's very likely to have the best hand, but I think he can get an absolute ton of value. He can have two pairs. He can have over pairs. He can possibly even have sets that would take a check call line here. If he check raises me, it's not going to be pleasant. I'm probably not going to fold though. I expect to see king queen quite a lot here. Now my only decision though is, now I've decided to stack off. I've not decided I'm not folding. It's what is the best way for me to get money in against the weaker parts of his range. And I think just taking a call line is the best way to do this. I'll be calling on any river. Well, maybe you wouldn't call on a queen, but that's it. I mean, that's not great, because if he did have a set that he took that line with, I'm in big trouble. I think this is probably very close to a fold, given all the things I've said about these games, about how weak tight they are. I think this probably should be a fold. The more I think about it, the more I think it is a fold. Well, having said that, the guy's got the green tag, so he could be doing it with worse. And he was. And that's why I couldn't fold against someone with the green tag. If that was a regular that took that line, I would probably find a fold. Against somebody with the green tag who is tagged green for a reason, it's because he's bad. I don't think that's a fold we can make. Against a regular, I would be probably turbo folding. I probably wouldn't even call the turn check raise. Here we have a very easy 3-bet. It doesn't matter what size. He's min raised, but we're deep. So I'm going to make it bigger, even though he's only min raised, just because of how deep we are. Here we have a really easy 4-bet against someone who I believe is a regular. And obviously I'm 4-bet calling it off. This will be like the third time we've got in a 3-bet or more pot with this guy. And hopefully we continue to hold. Again, I mean, he's done nothing wrong there. I'm a regular. Fair enough, I'm a regular on the tighter side. Well, having said that, it's blind versus blind. He has a very strong hand. He's done absolutely nothing wrong there. Just fortunately, it was my time to win. And unfortunately for him, it was his time to lose. Those things, they're going to happen a ton of times. And they're going to work out pretty much even. And we all just can lose to the rake in those situations. This guy has got less than 100 big blinds. I think we have a very clear value bet here. Value 3-bet for value. I'll be folding to a 4-bet. And I'm running hot with hitting pairs, which is always nice. Now against this guy, the only consideration here is what's the best way to get the money in. He has $23 left, there's 4 in the pot, 5 in the pot, sorry. It's going to be a 3-street job, so we don't have to bet the flop as big. If I thought there was a chance of getting it on 2 streets, I would bet much bigger. I'm now going for the 3-street, try and get the money in over 3 streets option. If he raises, there's not a chance of folding. Of course, I can be beat, but again, he's a player who's got less than 100 big blinds. I'm not really ever that inclined to make big folds against these type of players, although I could absolutely be beat here. I'm just going to call, and we're going to get all the money in on the turn. If he doesn't bet himself, I will just jam and expect to get called by worse hands enough. The 8's a really good card for us. It basically removes set pocket 8 from his range. So basically now I think I'm worried about ace, queen, pocket 6s, otherwise we're going to win the pot. And again, against regulars, when regulars raise me, I'm much more wary because they know what they're doing more. They're making less mistakes. When bad players or players I suspect to be bad raise me, I'm much more inclined to make calls against them just because they're going to have way more mistakes. They're going to be making way more mistakes than a regular is. That was a pretty standard isolation for somebody who limped under the gun. I'm really not sure people should have limp fold ranges in this day and age, but they do, clearly. I'm going to run this video for just another maybe 3 minutes. Maybe we'll go to half an hour, and then I'm going to call it a day at that because I've never made a video before. I've no idea how easy or hard they are to host or to how long it takes me to upload them. So this is like another learning experience for me. If you have any questions at all, post and ask them under the video in YouTube, or just ask questions in the threads which I post them on. I'm going to post this at least to Microgrinder. I'm going to post it to Reddit, possibly 2+2. So if you have any videos or you want to just abuse me and call me a nit or anything like that, please feel free to comment. There's no such thing as bad publicity as far as I'm concerned. The more comments, the more views I'm going to get, and hopefully the more work it will bring me in from people who have a desire to receive some coaching from me. My coaching is generally aimed at losing 2NL through 25NL players. I think these are the players I can help more than anybody else. If you're a winning 25NL player, especially on a site like PokerStars or something, there's not much I'm going to be able to do for you. If you're a losing player at 2NL through 25NL on any site, I will absolutely be able to help you to turn that around. We would do some database analysis, we can watch you play, we can do hand history reviews. There's lots of ways I can help, and lots of ways I have helped players like you. If you are already a winning player, you're going to look at a lot of the stuff I've said and done in this and think how terribly standard it is, and it has been terribly standard, but there are still a lot of players out there who aren't aware of these standards, and they're the people that I'm targeting in terms of how much can I help them. I'm not pretending that I've reinvented the wheel. I'm not pretending that I've invented fire. I am just hopefully able to demonstrate with my play and teach a really solid standard style of poker that will enable you to get your foot on the ladder of actually beginning to move up and become a profitable player. Online poker is as hard as it's ever been, but there is still plenty of money to be made if you are cutting out a lot of the silly mistakes that a lot of break-even losing players make. That's basically the main premise of what I teach people, is we just try and eliminate mistakes. If you eliminate a lot of the mistakes you're making, it stands to reason that's going to go straight onto your bottom line. As Mike Carroll once said, money saves spends as well as money earned. So if we can stop making maybe just 1 or 2 mistakes a session, that can be enough to take us from being a losing or break-even player into a reasonable winning player. So we'll make this King Jack the last time. We'll go to sit out on both tables. I'm going to start off by betting here just for some thin value. And I will be folding to a raise because I've only got second pair. If I had top pair, I wouldn't plan on folding it. Again, here I think we have a really thin spot. My plan here is to just bet the turn and then probably check back most rivers. Because it really is getting quite thin here, but we can still get calls from some worse hands. So all that's left to say really is I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you are the sort of player that I mentioned earlier, someone who's breaking even or losing at 2NL, 325NL, and feel you'd like to talk to me about perhaps working with me on one session or on a group of sessions, please feel free to ask in the threads or send me a private message if that's possible on whichever forums I post it to, and I'll get back to you very quickly. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.